Hello. Today we're going to talk about common mistakes that business owners make when hiring their first employee. I've talked about some things in the past about this, but I wanted to come on because this is something that I've seen repeatedly. New employers don't take the time and effort to make good choices when it comes to hiring their first employee, and it can have very expensive consequences, like 7-figure consequences, and could potentially put you out of business. So, where have I been? For those of you joining me for the first time, I was doing great on videos, and then life sort of attacked me, and things just happened. And I wasn't able to get back online for quite some time. I had some issues with surgery. I've had family member issues. Let's just say life got in the way for a few months. And so I apologize to people that have subscribed with the anticipation of getting videos daily or at least weekday. And I wanted to address that because I didn't want you to think, number one, I was a flake. Originally, it was supposed to go every day, every weekday at 11 o'clock. And we were supposed to build great rapport and learn from each other and supposed to be able to talk. And that just didn't happen. And so I didn't want it to go untalked about, as this is my most recent video. And I didn't want it to be something where I just kind of swept it under the rug or didn't even talk about it and then just kind of went on my merry way trying to build these types of relationships without explaining in full detail or at least reasonable amount of detail. I can understand that you don't need to know everything about my life, but just know that I've built a better infrastructure. I've been able to get better physically. I had some physical health issues. My daughter had some physical health issues, but I'm back and I'm still struggling with some of those things, but I wanted you to be aware of them so you understood that I really did want to be here and I wanted to continue helping your small business to build and develop, and that I really do care. So if you're new here, in case you haven't tuned in before, my name is Taylor Darcy from Think Legal, where I help you build the business of your dreams. So welcome. I'm excited that you're here, that you're watching this, most likely on the replay. You're not watching it live. Otherwise, I would see you. But please feel free to join me every weekday, almost every weekday, except for when I'm sick and other things pop up, unfortunately, at 11 a.m. to talk about your business, to grow your business with the legal things that you need to do to be successful. Also, I have a podcast. It's called Tactical Startup. It also talks about your business and how to develop. It's more marketing and non-legal stuff. I wanted to keep that one a little more available for different things outside of the YouTube channel. But I also publish the videos on YouTube so that you can see and we can talk together. But please make sure you're subscribing to that Tactical Startup podcast. The link is below so that we can develop this relationship to help you build that business, because there's no one way to build your business. I'm not going to pretend that there's one way, but there's lots of ways that you can hurt your business by not thinking about these things that we talk about, by not paying attention to these details. Because at the end, like I was saying with employment law, you can have a long 6-figure court battle if you don't pay attention to these details. And I would hate for that to be a factor, especially since most small businesses can't afford to sustain themselves by building and defending themselves in a lawsuit. So welcome. I'm excited you'll be here, and let's get started. Welcome back. So we're going to talk about these different issues that I see employers making all the time, because there's two sides to an equation. There's what the plaintiff is alleging in their complaint and or through their attorney, and then there's what the employer or the defense talks about when it comes to these types of things. And so what I'm really trying to do here is get you to reframe these ideas into something that is more beneficial to your business, because you're thinking about problems before they happen. You're thinking long term about these problems. Because if you don't, as I said before, you're going to end up having an expensive court battle unnecessarily. So a lot of this comes down to treating people with respect and treating them like you would want to be treated. Very simply put, the better you treat your employees, the less likely that any of these things will ever happen to you. But before they happen to you, let's talk about them. So we're gonna talk about them kind of in reverse order, in the respect that the number one is technically number 5. We're gonna count down to number 1. And I wanted you to be aware of these things because these are all play a factor in your business and whether or not you'll be successful. Because especially with that first employee comes a lot of excitement, but can also hurt you if you don't pay attention to them. Number 1, or number 5, sorry. Not having an employee handbook from the start. So many employers think that they're too small. They don't need it. It's too expensive. I don't need to spend the money on that yet. It's just one employee. It's no big deal. I don't need an employee handbook. But here's the problem. Once you get 1 employee, you're going to want 2. Once you get 2, you're going to want 3. Once you get 3, you're going to want 4. And it's only going to blossom from there. The problem is, if you don't address these common issues before you start an employee, the more challenging it gets for you to adopt these things. Now, that isn't to say that it has to be perfect before you start, but a draft, a done is better than perfect. Okay, that's just something that I've talked about before, but you want to keep this in mind, is that you can revise things and make it so that you're getting this information to your employees, but you don't want to hire an employee without having an employee handbook. It is crucial for your success, because it outlines a lot of your policies, procedures, things that could come up later that could hurt you a lot by not having them in there. I strongly, not suggesting you have to hire me for this, but I strongly recommend that you hire an attorney to draft your employee handbook. Number 1, a lot of them already have templates available to you. That's first and foremost. Number 2, you want to make sure you're getting all your legal bases, because an employee handbook is considered a legal document for your employees and for you. So you want to make sure that you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's, making sure that it has the correct legal language in it, and it's not just some hodgepodge document you throw together at the last minute. That being said, something is better than nothing. If you're if you're literally hiring an employee tomorrow, getting a brief employee handbook that outlines some things is better than nothing. But if you've paid attention to any of my videos for any period of time, having contracts, having all of these different things, you want to make sure that you're covered and protected. And that requires thinking through these issues ahead of time. And you can't do that on the fly. This isn't something you should just do because I tell you to. It's something you should think long and hard about to make sure that you're protected in your as much as humanly possible. There is nothing that will ever protect you 100%. It won't happen. You can't do it. It's not possible. However, if you can eliminate 95 to 99% of all issues by having a good employee handbook, you're going to be so much happier. You're going to have a much better employee-employer relationship because expectations are clear. You're going to be so much happier that you did this from the start. You will enjoy having an employee as opposed to being frustrated by having an employee. Think of it this way. On a website, you will put frequently asked questions. Okay. Very common. I have one on my website, thinklegal.law. If you go there, actually, no, I don't. I don't have a frequently asked questions. Woo, sorry. But you see them on a lot of websites for various different things. If you go there and you look at the frequently asked questions, and then you think about those are the things that you're going to want to put in the employee handbook. Those are the things that are going to matter to your employees. Benefits, time off, PTO, so on and so forth. You really want to think through these things ahead of time, because there will all come up questions. And why not have them written out so that it's clear? Clarity is always important in law and in life. The clearer your relationship is between you and your employee, the happier both of you will be, I promise. The next thing that I see happening a lot is implying in any way, shape, or form that your employment or the employees is anything other than at will. Implying there's a contract, not being very clear that the employment is at will. So there's several things that you can do to make sure that the employee knows that it's at will. First of all, putting it in any type of offer letter that it is at will, that you're in agreement between you and them, that there is no contract, there will never be a contract, and that you're putting specific wording in there saying that nothing can change this without writing. So you're going to put that in an offer letter. That's number one. Number two, you're going to put that also in your employee handbook. That's why I listed that one first and then talked about this, so that it is very clear. You want it in very distinguishable print. Okay. You want them to sign something saying that it is at will employment, so that it is very clear that there is no contract without it being written by a specific person. So in other words, you don't want to put that it just has to be in writing, because what if an HR or their boss, maybe you're not the boss, maybe somebody else is, that they imply that there is a contract in some way, shape, or form. You want to avoid that by making sure that only you can create that binding document. And so that means putting that in that wording on your offer letters as well as in your employee handbook, so that there's no way they can argue that it was anything other than at will. The next thing, and this one is kind of tricky, because you really want to limit your potential for litigation exposure. Supreme Court, a lot of different entities have come out in favor of employment arbitration. However, California has a funky thing that talks about arbitration, that you can't coerce someone into arbitration by having an agreement. So what you want to do is have a voluntary arbitration agreement that says to the employee that, and listing off the benefits. And then again, this is something you should draft with an attorney to make sure that it's clear, the language is good, but that you want to have it so that it's clear that there's an arbitration, that's how they're going to settle disputes, and that litigation is not an option. It will save time. It typically will save you money. You're going to be a lot happier if you're limiting yourself to arbitration as a business. The con to that is litigation. People can get discouraged by litigation and it be a reason for them not to pursue a claim. So there's no perfect solution, but from a business standpoint, arbitration is typically a better solution than litigation. Next thing that I see mistakes is underpaying employees. I see this all the time. Not just underpaying them because you're skirting it at minimum wage because minimum wage is whatever, but not really evaluating them for what they're worth. Okay, you want to make sure that you're giving them the best value for the money. Some friends of mine, they talk about golden handcuffs. When you get a rock star employee, there is nothing worse than having to train them, get them really good at their job, and then having them leave. And that is terrible. I mean, just from it takes a long time to find somebody. It takes a long time to train them, and it takes a long time for them to get super good at their job. So the last thing you want to do is create a scenario where you're having to do this all over again. So by paying them what they're worth, like really looking at their value and saying, look, what would it cost me to have to find somebody new and have to train them and have to do all of these other things, especially when they're a good performer. So by creating a scenario where they couldn't ever afford to leave because you're giving them such great benefits and you're giving them such great income that they would have to take a step down. But part of this is also having a good company culture. By doing that, sometimes no amount of money is going to change someone's mind. They're going to want to leave. So part of that is, again, treating employees right, doing all of these things, but most importantly, having a good company culture so that the money is just like, why would they ever choose to leave? Maybe they retire someday, but that they have no reason to leave because of negative environment or because of lack of pay. And so, but when you get cheap with them, you're going to have a high turnover. That's just how it is. You can't pay people poorly and expect them to stick around because they have bills to pay. They have lives, they have dreams, they have things that they want to do. And if you're not helping them get there, they're not going to help you get where you want to be either. So you really want to make sure you're paying them what they're worth, really, not just what you could theoretically afford to pay them, quote unquote, to be cheap. And this will greatly reduce the potential for wage and hour claims. And anytime you can avoid that is a good thing. Anytime you can avoid a dispute. Would you rather put that money into your business or putting it into building your employee relationships or paying benefits or paying salary? Or would you rather be paying that in litigation or arbitration, depending on your thing? The truth is, it's much cheaper to pay an employee what they're worth and to do right by them from the beginning than it is to worry about a wage and hour claim or other issues that we've talked about previously. So this really comes down to pay reasonable now or pay crazy later. That's just very simple what it is. Don't pay crazy later. Do the right thing. Make good sense there. The last and probably most important and one of the most common mistakes, I cannot emphasize this enough, misclassifying your employees as independent contractors, especially in California with AB5 and the Dynamics case. You want to make sure that you are classifying your employees correctly. If you ever want to know how painful it is, I had a client at one point that the person was alleging $1,200 in unpaid wages. The EDD was charging them an additional $5,000 in penalties because of that wage and hour claim. And the worst part about it is that the attorney, the employer is the one that's responsible for the burden of proof. In normal court cases, the plaintiff has the burden of proof. But when it's before the EDD, the employer has it. So you have to prove that they did not work for you. And proving a negative is hard. So it automatically sets up this burden, this difficulty that you don't want to mess with, like, honestly. So my general advice to everyone, this is without a doubt the biggest mistake you can make, is not paying them as an employee. So do your thing, but make sure you're following it correctly. Pay your employees as employees. Correctly categorize them so that they are being able to take care of business, right? Because you don't want to have to pay an extra $4,000 or $5,000. I saw one as high as $20,000 for misclassifying an employee and not paying wages. They only owed the guy $5,000, and it was an additional $20,000 for not paying him. So don't hire people if you can't afford them, but pay them what they're worth. Think of this as a business, right? I hate to say that, and that's, people like, well, it is a business. But if you don't think of it as a business, if you're too busy thinking of it as how I can make them do the work that I don't want to do, and I'm not going to pay them enough to really do the job, I'm just going to pay them enough so that they are okay staying here until I can find somebody better or something to that effect. Whatever's going on in your head. Stop thinking those things. Start thinking about the ways that you can improve their life because they are improving your life. They're treating you like you would want to be treated. It's just amazing the difference that you can do. if you've gotten value out of this video, don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to be notified of when we go live. And let's see, I think we're, let's try that. There we go. Don't miss future videos. Subscribe, hit that bell icon so that you get notified of when we go live. I look forward to meeting with you. Please feel free to drop comments below. Show up live. It'll be fun. I promise. We're going to do these more often. And now that I've got everything situated, I'm looking forward to meeting you and getting to know you. So please, if you have a small business, stop by, and I hope to talk to you soon.